YouTube. Yeah, so yesterday night, I think, the WandaVision trailer dropped. And even though I was awake, I was shattered and exhausted, so there's no way I was gonna do a live watch of that then and there. But yeah, my arm things don't really work with this very well. So I probably just knocked all of my settings off by nudging everything. Less of my inability to do a stream without something going wrong, and more about this. So yeah, this trailer dropped yesterday, and this is the first MCU Disney Plus show, I believe, that's going to be released. It's due to be released. Well, I might send this trailer, but I think September. Oh wait, we are in September, November. I think in a couple of months. Um, on Disney Plus, and what was I about to say? I was going to say something else because it's going somewhere. But yeah, it's okay. So what I know about this is obviously we've got Wanda and Vision returning, played by Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen. But obviously it's interesting because Vision's of course dead. So what does that mean? I also know, judged by a whole bunch of publicity photos, that we essentially see both Wanda and Vision in what seems to be kind of what 70s, 80s American kind of a setting. Something weird is obviously going on there. We see them in what seems to be outfits resembling sort of classic comic book appearances. And we also, I believe, know that Wanda plays somewhat of a role in the Doctor Strange sequel, Doctor Strange Madness in the Multiverse, or something to that effect. So yeah, it's everything that's really been released in terms of publicity for those shows this to be quite weird, and from the very brief kind of screenshots I've been unable to avoid since I came and sat down here, this is basically going to confirm all that. So without more rambling for myself, let's give us a quick leave. I seem to be here in the corner seem to be lagging. I don't know why that is. Um, because it for example, doesn't lag when I go to this shot. So I don't know why it's lagging now, but you guys have to deal with that, and that's a problem for me to fix another day. Anyway, less than me, more of this.
Wanda and Vision, aren't we a fine pair?
This is our home now. I want us to fit in.
Oh, this is gonna be a gas!
Where did you two move from? How long have you been married? And why don't you have children yet?
Our story.
I think what my wife means to say is that we moved from...
Moved from where? Married when? Damn it, why?
Oh, Arthur, stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it.
This is really happening.
Am I dead?
No. Why would you think that?
Because you are.
We are an unusual couple, you know.
Oh, I don't think that was ever in question.
Well, it's gonna be a whole bunch to kind of go through in this, isn't there? Yeah, I mean, it pretty much kind of is what I was expecting. It seems to be very much. It seems to be. It's very self-satirical, so it's very postmodern in that respect, which is kind of something I really love in media. A lot of my favorite shows are postmodern shows, take the Mickey out of themselves and media as a whole and genres and things like that. So I saw a whole bunch of references to kind of anything really from 70s American sitcoms, of which I know nothing. So it could be anything really from 60s to the 80s for all I know. But also a bunch of stuff from 90s American sitcoms, which I know something about because I was born in the 90s, and you really can't avoid American TV. At all, really. Yeah, so it's strange actually. This is on a tangent, but I've always kind of held a belief that British kids are more exposed to American TV than American kids are probably exposed to British TV. So I kind of think that British kids, a lot of what we perceive as kind of TV is influenced equally by British TV and American TV, and I don't think that's the same for American audiences. Just based on kind of how you see American audiences absorb British TV, you don't really see that same disconnect when British audiences absorb American TV. This is a complete tangent, it has nothing to do with WandaVision, but this is kind of what I do. You have to deal with it. That's, yeah, I think that's a thing, because I don't know, it seems that American exports more to Britain than you get British exports to America. Anyway, less of me rambling about media things, and let me mute this if it lets me. You can't see what's happening because it's, why is it no? Let me scrub. Let me. Am I dead? No. Shush. Mute. Can't get the technology these days, can you? Should have done this when I was rambling. There we go. Now you're muted. Okay, so the first thing I love about this trailer is how it plays over aspect ratios. It's a weird thing to kind of identify with, but I consider myself a weird, a massive aspect ratio nerd. I love kind of considering the aspect ratios of films and why I've chosen to go for aspect ratio. And one thing I love is when different types of media play around with aspect ratios. Think, Wes Anderson's The Grand Budapest Hotel, how it uses aspect ratios to illustrate time. I've produced videos myself, which change aspect ratios throughout to kind of convey a lot of time stuff, but kind of also other things. There's been a couple of things I've seen where they've played on they've played and broken aspect ratios and kind of been very meta around that. So I love how this. You start off with it incorporating aspect ratios, not only that but also distortion. So you get all the scan lines in the footage. It's slightly vignetted, curved as if you're watching through an old curved TV screen, and then it kind of then cleans off, and it's still a 4:3 aspect ratio, which was the norm until early mid 2000s. And then we get this part which is obviously very 60s American sitcom-ish. They've done a whole bunch of what looks like film things here, so I mean it's very clean, the footage, because it's obviously filmed in modern HD, but I think my computer's probably gonna complain when I try to play this. I don't know why it's being so temperamental right now, but I think if I play it back through, the frame rate is slightly higher, more in line with sitcoms and soaps than with modern drama. So I probably guess it's American, so it will be probably 50 FPS, I think, is what the American standard is for soaps. I know in Britain it's 20, 30, something like that. Yeah, it seems very much. The aspect ratio seems more in line with soaps and soap operas. That's what my feeling is anyway. Or maybe it's just my computer keeps lagging and then speeding up. It's hard to really tell the pacing of your footage when your computer is absolutely terrible. But I mean, also, like, you can see the style of acting, the style of direction, the camera movements, the pans. like a lot of soaps would use a multi-camera setup, whilst most modern TV now use a single camera setup. So you'd film the same scene with a single camera from multiple angles. But a lot of soaps, they would film essentially as live. So essentially what you're doing is you're acting as if you're on a stage. And indeed, this kind of ties back into having a live audience. So you'd perform as if you were on basically a three-walled stage, and then the fourth wall is your audience, and there would actually be a live audience who represent that. And you'd have multiple cameras, so rather than having to enact a scene multiple times for a different camera angle, you'd have a wide, and you'd have your single shots, and it's basically very, very simple setup, and you'd pan. It's basically what you consider when you think of when you think of a stereotypical TV set. So this is obviously kind of using those production values to try and recreate that style. And you see with the kind of funky acting, a lot of this kind of scene reminds me of probably the only thing I can remember off the top of my head as having any exposure to as a young kid, but Sabrina the Teenage Witch, which I probably think is, filmed after the time this is meant to be, but that kind of whole cheesy over the top acting, the part where she changes Vision's face and he pulls that expression, it's very over the top, comedic, kind of expressive nature there. The dialogue, it's very kind of unnatural and stilted to the point, but that's kind of again less naturalistic and more not surreal but more in line with sitcom kind of conversation. Special effects, so I mean even then that's a mixture of both. So you get the overlay of sparkles, which is kind of more in line with this era of TV and technology available to it, but then you also see underneath that is more kind of modern CGI mapping around her face, follows that. It's still simplistic, but that's obviously something which wouldn't have been what they would have done in 60s era sitcom, because that would have required rotoscoping, and rotoscoping is a lot of work for a little payoff. Yeah, it's very kind of cheesy, early 60s humor. There's something else I was going to point out. Like, a lot of this kind of reminds me of kind of things like Sabrina the Teenage Witch, which maybe I should watch more of. It's been a while since I've seen that. Well, like, I don't think I've seen it since I was like 5 or 6. But I clearly stuck with me enough to be able to make a connection between those two things. There was something else about this which I was about to say when I continued my tangent and then didn't say. And then as we progress further along, we then start to see the cracks in the whole facade here. It's a scene playing out where the two other people are asking about these two characters' kind of background, and then they realize they don't know. So what this seems to imply to me in terms of the premise of the show is whatever's happened here, and I've got a theory about that, and I'll start with this and hopefully go back to my original point before I forget my tangent, is as a genre comic book fan, I didn't really have much access to actual comic books growing up because, buying comics cost money, and I wasn't moneyed enough to buy comics. So everything I was exposed to as a child in terms of comic book lore was basically secondhand, as in like I would read on fan websites and fan databases, and then eventually when the wikis turned up and Wikipedia turned up, I'd read them there. But even before Wikipedia was a thing, there'd be like tons of like DC Marvel websites where you'd read about all the history and the lore, and you just kind of absorb it through there, you learn about the character from there. That's my pure exposure to comic books. So if that makes me a fake comic book fan, so be it. But anyway, there's quite a notable event in Marvel history. I believe it's called the House of M, where Wanda, in this continuity, a mutant and the daughter of Magneto, basically commands that there would be no more mutants. And in this part of Wanda as a character in the comic books, she had reality-changing power. That's been kind of, as much things are in the MCU, tempered down to a more measured and equalized level, but it's still alluded to that she has the ability to kind of manipulate reality. So if my theory is that Wanda, intentionally or otherwise, is responsible for creating this reality which they're now in, by kind of, and well, her powers aren't from the reality stone, from the mind stone, but somehow it kind of gives her reality bending powers. But the powers that she has is what's caused this. But it seems at this point they don't realize this has happened. They kind of both seem aware. I mean, depending on where this is set, they both seem at points aware of who they really are and trying to disguise that, but they're also not aware. So they're trying to answer where they met and where they came from. But obviously, that's stuff which is in your reality, they're not quite sure. And then, somewhat in a very meta sense, even within the narrative of this scene, the characters themselves realize this is wrong and kind of start reacting. And as the walls of this setting break down and the characters realize things wrong, and this is things I love, but it's many times before, the aspect ratio increases to a 16:9, which is somewhat refreshing to see because for some bizarre reason, TV, well, at least a lot of streaming sites have seemed to insist on producing content in an anamorphic ratio, like 2.39 to 1. Star Trek Discovery has done this. Mandalorian does this. For some bizarre reason, Doctor Who has decided to do this, and they're pretty as it looks. I'm not sure why, because Doctor Who is broadcast on national television, on a national television channel, to an audience which I assure you a vast majority of will have 69 televisions. And I personally believe you should. I don't like letterboxes unless they're kind of, or pillar boxes unless they're conveying a notion like this and they're changing throughout. But I think if your aspect ratio is consistent, it should be making the full use of the canvas you're intending to broadcast to. If you're broadcasting to television and most of your audience will be using 16:9 screens, I firmly believe that you should then film by 16:9 because you're making the most of your canvas. And I think it's just a cheat to invoke more sense of cinematicness by adding two black bars bottom and top. Like when I make my short films, I know they're going to be released online on YouTube or Vimeo or what have you, or going to be broadcast or going to be shown at a film festival on a projector screen. That's going to be 16:9. So I always film my films 16:9. I don't ever see the reason for why I'd have a different aspect ratio, because I'm just removing space from my canvas. So it's refreshing to see that this show in its majority is actually 16:9. Yeah, so the walls break, we start to... Okay, not yet, but yeah. We get this back and then it reverses back, and we get some more scan lines and distortion, and there we go. So we get this part, and it seems to be kind of the break in between the fake reality and the real reality. And then we get a whole bunch of kind of clips. And this is kind of more... The vibrant colours here are now more in tune with late 90s, early 2000s, I'd say, TV. Kind of the vibrant colours. This is more kind of modern sitcom, modern comedy colours, more kind of in line with the vibrancy you get in, say, for example, Scrubs, which is my favourite comedy, so that's probably why I'm related to that. Our favourite, at least, situational comedy. And we see a collection of kind of random, quirky scenes, and these are like, like you've got an emotive Vision acting not as he does in the films, but very much doing other funky stuff. So they're dancing here. Is it gonna let me? It's super hard to stop on different scenes. Here we see less vibrant colours. The quality of the footage is not as crisp. This to me seems like it's actually, if not filmed, at least filtered into standard definition. Like you can see the fuzziness of the footage compared to the previous footage. This is definitely not meant to be taken as HD. Of course, I mean, I don't know how it's filmed, but it's not rendered high definition. It's slightly more pixelated. But it's still 69, so it's a bit strange because you wouldn't see TV filmed in this quality, I suppose, in this kind of aspect ratio. But yeah, and also, and the housing is different, so this isn't set in this house. So we see like different eras, so we're kind of jumping between different eras of television, and I like how as we jump between different eras of television, the quality and the look of the thing, the look of the film and feel of the scene matches that. So this is more in line with so the first bit was kind of more 60s TV. This is more in line with, I think, between, I'd say, 80s TV. The one before that is kind of late 90s, early 2000s TV. This is the same kind of thing. I think that's the character we've seen in a couple of the shots, but I don't know who they are. I haven't actually looked at any of the kind of recent press releases around casting or anything, which is probably good because that means they're coming into this more blind, but also means I have no idea who I'm looking at here, what the role they're playing. This is very much 80s kind of costume and outfit. Very suburban America. This is the a scene which is it's been screenshot and shared across the internet, and this is basically Wanda dressed more in line with how her comic book appearance is. And then we cut to a more. This is more modern TV quality now, where we're seeing CGI scenes, CGI backgrounds. This is modern vision. And then here we get a line where this character is basically told Vision that he's dead. So obviously this is some kind of afterlife for Vision. Eventually cackles as a witch, which I think is brilliant, and to me kind of reinforces that this is deliberately taking some influence from Sabrina, like references, but I mean maybe that's just me drunk from what I know. A visionary new age, because we love puns. So this is Vision dressed as how he appears in the comics. And as someone on Discord pointed out, not my Discord, I'm not that good to have fans to come on my Discord, that'd be insane. People in the background seem to be wearing costumes, so it seemed, I don't know, someone speculated that this is perhaps set during Halloween, which makes sense. This is interesting because, I don't know, I guess this could be a modern household. Yeah, it looks kind of, this could be a household anytime post 2000s, post 2010s. It's definitely filmed in more modern film style. But the special effects are all kind of analog TV distortion that we see, which I think is kind of cool. This is Wanda shaping the reality around her, which to me kind of reinforces that this is Wanda either intentionally or at least or unintentionally, or as different parts with different knowledge of herself, trying to create a reality that her and Vision can exist in. So I really hate it. It's really bad for my kind of attention span when trailers have text which is split between, they have text and then a whole set and text and then a whole set. Like I forget what the previous set of text said, so I'm like, this is part of a sentence. What does the previous part say? I can't remember. I think it was Vision New Age. So this is like Vision New Age of television. But we briefly see WandaVision was about to kind of appear there, but it wasn't. Holly on my chart is speculating that it's the same house but different eras, so they're living in the same property, but it changes throughout, which I guess is possible. We haven't really seen enough shots, but I don't know, this shot we were in a second ago, if it's gonna scrub back for me, it's gonna scrub back a whole bit back. This looks more like a flat than a house. I don't know, maybe I'm saying it's flat because I'm so used to flats because I've lived in one. I don't know. I think the way the window, possibly actually it could be the same house. I mean, a house from the 60s to like 2000s, I guess, could have the same structure but still completely different way to decorate it. And I guess I'm pointing out that Wanda has reality changing ability. So maybe that is what she's doing. Even if it's, so I guess it could be the same neighborhood. So here now we see kind of more modernist shots, but again, possibly still set in period eras. We still get the same the TV style distortion with effects, and then we cut back to kind of the stinger of the thing, where they were like, "Oh, we're just a normal, or we're an unusual couple," and he gets laughter track. So again, it kind of takes more kind of tropes from different eras of television, and then title card. So I think the premise of this is probably, you know, Wanda creating a reality for her and Vision to hide away in, but it's not going fluidly. There are other kind of factors interfering with that. I don't know who any of these other characters are because I haven't done research in it, and I like my comic book lore knowledge isn't good enough to guess, but also legend appearances. Holly's asked if one of the characters is possibly one of the mutants I was referring to. Probably unlikely. I don't know actually. It's because the Marvel Studios now do own the right to X-Men, and it has been a topic of much discussion and contention between Marvel Studio fans about how exactly they're going to bring mutants into the MCU. I feel bringing the mutants into the MCU is going to be a big... It's something people are kind of very much on the edge of gagging for. So I think it's going to be quite... It's going to be done on a more massive scale. So I don't think this is going to be how they introduce mutants. Although, I don't know. I don't think... Maybe it just happened in this show. I don't think that's what we're seeing here. But considering in the comics, Wanda gets rid of the mutants, it would be kind of funny if she in here brings them into the continuity. But yeah, I think it pretty much establishes the premise. It establishes the tone. I'm going to honestly be a big, massive fan of the meta-ness of it. As someone who, at the moment, on an amateur level, likes to study media and film and tropes of that, and hopefully very soon we'll be studying it on a more professional / academic level. It's fascinating for me when you have actually a piece of fiction which also self-references media. I'm a big fan of postmodernism, and this is very much postmodernism. So it sets the tone, it sets the premise, but very little about actually, and kind of some of the conflicts, but very little about actually what's going on. So yeah, those are my thoughts. I'm glad I was able to kind of talk coherently, unlike the Mandalorian video where I was so out of it. I was just blabbering about how little I could recognize Star Wars planets, how the mighty have fallen. When I was younger, I could tell you a Star Wars planet by the bare minimum information. But now my brain is full of all useful things like things, Anyway, thanks for watching this. If you're hearing me say this, you have watched it, so I guess I can thank you without it being weird. Good job. You watched this. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And I'll see you for next thing. Be interested to know when they drop the Falcon and the Winter Soldier trailer, but the current kind of, I guess, utterings online is the Falcon and Winter Soldier won't be released until 2021, so it's maybe a couple of months until we see that. Yes, I know first aid stuff. And the next Marvel film is Black Widow, and okay, someone on the MCU wiki Discord, because those are the Discord people I'll be talking about, have said that WandaVision is currently rumored to come out on Thanksgiving weekend, November 27th. Thanksgiving weekend is actually a pretty decent time to release a show which is self-referential about American media, and a lot of American sitcoms are set in middle-class urban situations where the American dream is kind of very much a common thread. So that would make a lot of sense, but definitely like November time. I think someone else here has said something about Black Widow being postponed again, so we're not entirely sure when that's going to be, but it's going to be next year at this point. It's actually, we've had a kind of curious gap in the MCU because of COVID, which is I don't know, it's a bit weird because I guess if nothing else, I don't want to say COVID was nicely timed in any sense, because when is a good time for a pandemic? But I guess if you're gonna end, I guess basically what I'm saying is COVID was at least conscious of Marvel's release schedule, because it kind of interrupted Marvel Studios productions literally cleanly between Phase 4 and Phase 5. And there's not really any kind of plot threads that are being tied into anything at the moment, because we wrapped up on the Infinity Saga. So I guess I don't think anyone could really be. I mean, I don't particularly feel put off by the fact I'm not getting another MCU film for like a while, because it's like if we take Marvel films as basically episodic episodic films, and each phase is like a season. It's pretty kind of normal to have like a seasonal break nowish anyway. So scale wise, it's kind of mixed. It kind of isn't really that much of an issue. Oh yeah, I do remember watching a Black Widow ad, and it was in the cinema when I went to go see Tenet. So yeah. But like I think what's also interesting is how it influences MCU. Because one of the annoying things is how the MCU has been so resistant on acknowledging the ABC TV show, so Agent Carter and Agents of Shield. But I suppose they were telling their own story, and they as shows, they were focused so much on secondary characters, and all but one of the main cast of Agents of Shield were original characters for that show, and in terms of Agent Carter, a lot of the supporting cast were original characters, so it kind of had that degree of narrative separation. These Disney Plus shows directly taking main characters from the films, so Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen, and neither of them are low key names. Paul Bettany's a thing in film. He's quite a known name, and Elizabeth Olsen as well. And their characters are kind of main cast characters, and we know a Scarlet Witch is appearing in another MCU film, so it follows on and should then thus directly tie back into the MCU. And possibly also the other Disney Plus films, I think shows, keep saying films. Like we've got Falcon and Winter Soldier, we've got the Loki thing, and we've got Hawkeye, I think. Possibly Loki and Hawkeye, and the other one we don't know much about them either, but we don't even know what tie-ins much, but we know we see Scarlet Witch later on, so that'd be interesting. Anyway, I'm getting very thirsty. And hungry. So, thanks for watching. Because I said that like 10 minutes ago and I continued talking. And I'll see you guys next time. And I work out why this is lagging so much, because it's so annoying.